go. Let's see. We are doing a chat with author Mina Harris. Where are you, girl? I'm waiting for her. I'm so bad at these. I really shouldn't be in charge of these things. Let me see. This is me trying to go live. Is it working? It's not working.
Did that work?
Oh,
hi!
Working.
It did work.
Hi.
I'm having all kinds of lighting issues, but hi!
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm good. Let's see here.
Yeah, I'm
very shiny.
You look great. You look like you have perfect lighting. I don't know if I can say the same, but it's nice to see your beautiful face.
Oh, it's nice to see you too. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm tired. I mean, you asked, so
you have some kids. You have some business.
Oh God, it's a lot. I mean, I know you're doing so much too, but I have to remind myself that, you know, it's all of that. Plus we're still living through a pandemic and
oh yeah, that thing, that old thing.
You know, like stuck in the house with little children and, you know, trying to keep them alive.
And they want to run outside and they want to do all the things.
Exactly. By the way, I know we're supposed to be talking about the book, my new book. So thank you first for just hosting the conversation. But I was like, oh my God, I want to talk to her about all this other stuff. I want to talk about you being an entrepreneur and all your creative. I mean, there's just so much that I could talk to you about. So I'll try to stay on topic.
Let's get in. Yeah, let's jump in. So I don't know if people know, but you've authored 2 children's books. And, you know, for those of you out there who are aspiring authors, and certainly those parents out there, we know as parents just how valuable that time is with your kiddos when you do start reading to them. I would say even before my kids could walk, all of them, we were reading. It was like part of the nighttime routine, right. You know, bath time, you read the stories, and we have Baba time, and we then sing our songs, and it's like this whole thing.
Right.
And you know, really I have found that, you know, I'm Mexican and I grew up in, you know, pretty traditional Mexican American household. And my husband is Black and white, but he was raised mostly with his Black father. And just the lack of representation of Black and brown and, you know, really any person of color in children's books it's wacky. And, you know, I think what's so rad about your books is that you do have girls who are not like every other children's book. They're not white. And it's not that there's nothing. I mean, obviously you want to have inspirational stories, but just like how valuable it is for kids to see other people that look like them.
Exactly.
Just how important that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, the default, certainly since I was a kid and since you were a kid, right, like children's books, and we still have a problem, like there's still a lack of representation. We've made so much progress in just the last, you know, 3 to 5 years, like not that long. There's this insane statistic that in 2018, only 3 years ago, there were more children's books that had animals as main characters than there were books that had Black, Latinx, Asian, and Indigenous human characters combined. Wow. And then of the books that did have human characters, it's something like, you know, over 50% of them were white boys were the main characters.
Right.
So we still have a lot of work to do. But yeah, I think to your point, it's not just about, you know, the importance of my daughters, your daughters, but your son to see that,
Yeah.
right? For men to see that, because, you know, the default has been forever and ever that, you know, the main character is a white boy or white men. I mean, that's what we see in society. And it's not just, you know, good for, you know, our daughters to see themselves literally represented on pages, but it's also important for all of us to believe in that and to see that. And it's like, you know, as you said, but kids' books are just so, and I really came to understand this as a new parent, right? Like, I think a lot of people have the experience of, you know, maybe you have a baby shower, and a lot of people have like a book list, and it's just a whole part of the experience. But like sitting down and reading to them and just seeing that the impact of it, that it's for, you know, I think the most part is, as you said, like really, really young, the way that they learn about the world for the first time. It's a part of a routine, right? That your family is engaging with you in. And, you know, being able to see yourself and your family represented, but it's also about just like raising good kids, right?
Yeah.
Like seeing the world and experiences through the eyes of other people and not only through, you know, your bubble
experience. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, what's cool is, like you said, with my son, since really though your books are the books that we read with him because they've come out recently. And and of course it's just like a movie. Once it's like they want to read the same book every night for a few months
over again.
And we'll have our like 3 to 4 books, and it's the same books, and you like really go in, and then they start memorizing the book and looking forward to it, and then they start to pick out, you know, the moments, and it's really sweet how the story unfolds even in their eyes, and it becomes facts and a truth to them, right? And I remember when I had Honor, there was I read something that kids actually create their prejudices or their bias with others by the time they're 3. So it's like what accents they're exposed to, what types of cultures and communities they're exposed to before 3, really kind of helps them. It sets them up to be open or closed. And so it really is up to us at a young age, at the earliest ages, to read to our kids and expose our kids to other types of folks that have different types of experiences, just so they are fully, you know, well-rounded, open people.
Yep. Yeah. Right. And just good people, right? Like empathetic, compassionate people. We had a lot of these conversations, thankfully, I think coming out of, you know, last summer with the BLM protests, where I think a lot of white parents were finally, you know, kind of thinking about, you know, how do I have these conversations, or how do I find tools to start these conversations? You know, I think for many of them, you know, thanks to, again, the work of Black activists and others that have been doing that work for years, we're saying, look at your bookshelves, right? Like this work starts in your home.
In your home.
And like you said, it's also, how do we talk about differences, right? Is it something that we emphasize in a positive way and celebrate, or is it something where we try to find sameness first, right? And diminish differences in a way that doesn't allow us to celebrate it and recognize it. And worse yet, right? Think of difference as something as other or weird or negative, you know? I like this.
I would say even with like, I mean, for me, I've been a pretty open person my whole life, and I've made a point to, for myself, even at an early age, reach outside of where I was raised or how I grew up. I think because I always felt like I didn't fit in with my family necessarily. You know, I always felt like kind of an odd person inside of you know, my family's quite, you know, sort of like conservative and, you know, and they just have like, you know, values that are, you know, they're good people and all of that. But I was always quite rebellious and felt like I didn't quite fit in. And so I was always kind of reaching out to different cultures and communities and finding connections in other places. So when I became a mom, food is also, you know, beyond books.
Yeah, same.
Food
Yeah.
and traveling with my kids. I've been traveling with my kids, all of them really since they were 4 months old. I've taken them with me, and I forced them to experience different types of food. I never say anything is weird or disgusting or even if it is different, it's like, just try it.
Right.
You never know.
Exactly.
You know, and just having a more positive attitude even on something that you may or may not be familiar with, just being open and having like a more, I guess, inclusive and a positive tone in how you talk about it, that will then really make such an impact on the way that your kid experiences differences and different things.
Exactly.
And so I think that is something, you know, that I've made a very concerted effort in doing with my kiddos. So, you know, I think consistency also helps. But
yes, exactly.
But I do appreciate your books.
It can't just be one weekend conversation, or as you're talking about travel, like it can't just be like one trip to wherever, a different place that you're not, right? Like that's not enough. It is. And I know that we're all busy and tired, and there's a lot that day to day we're all, you know, juggling, but it really is about showing up with that like intention. And as you said, consistency. And also it doesn't have to be a big thing. I think it's important for people to be encouraged, like to meet people where they are. Right. And what I think was most interesting to see from some of the conversations with parents coming out of the BLM protests were, you know, folks were waking up to like, oh, we don't really have those types of conversations in our house, you know, and if it is the first time that you're trying to do something that you've never been done before, it's okay to, you know, do what works for you, right? Do it incrementally, you know, find books, right? If conversations are harder to sort of just start, right? There's just so many, and now thankfully there's so many resources now coming out of that summer, right? That people were compiling lists and just so much information to help people do that.
Yeah. It's also like when you do have a book or an article that you could read, or, you know, even watching a movie or documentary or any of that, you know, I do try to, when there are some difficult things that are being tackled, even in entertainment or in a book, to like stop and like talk to my kids, and they're always like, "Mom, why are we talking about this? Let's just finish it." And I'm like, I know,
okay,
I know,
pause
but
like
let's just take 5 minutes. Like, what do you think about that? Or did you know that this, you know, even just
I do that too.
explaining to them.
Movies is a great example, but we do that. This is kind of what started me on the path of wanting to write a book, which is that I'm reading a book and I, you know, maybe it's my fault, like for not kind of screening it ahead of time, or like assuming that, you know, it's a iconic, like, you know, piece of children's literature, or somebody else recommended it. But I'm like turning page by page. I'm like, there's no women in this book, or, you know, I don't know their names, or why are all the women silent and supporting characters, or, you know, so like to your point, I'll pause and say, oh, that's interesting. Did you notice that? Or, right. How do you feel about that? And it's good to do that. I mean, yeah, I'll be the annoying parent to like pause the book or pause the movie, right?
Same.
That's what happens.
It drives them crazy when they get older too.
Exactly.
But I think, you know, what's cool about, even, you know, what I love about your first book is just also showing kids how activism doesn't need to be the types of protesting that I think most people think of when they think of activism, you know, on the streets, protesting with signs. Like activism can be, you're getting a letter signed by different people in your apartment building or in your neighborhood, and you want to, you know, fight for this idea of like the playground, or you know, this community space. Like that is activism.
Exactly.
And it can start at 9 or 8, you know, if you believe in something, why not?
Yeah, I think, you know, especially coming out of the 2016 election, where we saw, I think, more, you know, ordinary people engaging in activism and civic engagement in ways we've never seen before. at the same time, in that moment, a lot of people were, I think, asking, you know, at that point that it is, oh, sorry, am I freezing up?
You froze for a second, okay. But you're back.
I also am so annoyed. I'm competing with sunlight, and it's made like, I know that it's like very dark, terrible lighting. So sorry, everyone.
No, you look amazing.
But you know, that the point is, and that is from the first book, right? This line that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And the point is that activism, you know, or whatever you want to call it, right? Giving a damn, making a difference, that is available to all of us. And there are not only, you know, unique ways that you can contribute, meaning your own personal, you know, creative skills or right experiences. It also can be small or seemingly small, right? And it's just about starting somewhere. And in the first book, it is right about starting in your backyard, right? Literally looking at the courtyard of your apartment complex and deciding, you know, I see something that I would like to change. And so I'm going to go change it, you know? And I guess, you know, to kind of like tie the two books together, to me, that is the definition of being ambitious. And that is something that we should encourage, you know, especially with our girls, right? Who we know will be told inevitably when they get into the working world, into the real world, you know, that they're to this or to that, or that female ambition is not a good thing. And my whole thing is like, if you're daring to, you know, challenge the status quo, or you're daring to change something or have a vision for society or your community or whatever, and decide to go do that, that is, you know, you have to be ambitious, right? Like that is something we should celebrate. And that was really, you know, the inspiration for the second book, which is realizing that's the family I grew up in. I was told, and I saw it every day, you know, I had this worldview of female ambition, and that it did mean purpose and determination. And, you know, as you said, like activism, whatever you want to call it, right? It's being bold and having a, you know, dream and going after it. But realizing as I got older that, and I was actually trying to think back, like when was the first time that I perceived and was kind of taught, you know, by society that we think of female ambition in a negative way. And unsurprisingly, I think it was in a political context. It was, you know, I was like fresh out of college. This was 2008. I was on the Obama campaign, and I was also doing like local political stuff. And it was sort of the like, you know, talking about another woman who had political aspirations, and sort of like, oh, you know, she has political ambitions, right? It's like, oh, she's a snake, or she's calculating or opportunistic. And the point is, whatever it means, all the bullshit meaning that we ascribe to that, like we just don't do that to men, right? It is a double standard, and let's call that out. And to your very first point about just the power of kids' books, you know, as I said, I was raised in a family where nobody like sat me down and read a book to me about the word ambition and told me the definition of it. But now that I am a parent, and I'm seeing this in the real world, I've experienced it. I'm sure you have. And we can go down the list of all the words, right, that are used against women, and, you know, used as a critique in a way that we don't with men. I'm like, you know what? Let's sit down and define that word, and let's put it in a book, and let's read that as part of our bedtime routine, right? Like, let's call that out and claim it, and name it and claim it, and reject that, and start young. And it's just as important for your son, right, to see that, to see female ambition on pages of books, as it is for me. Frankly, I mean, I was like, I wrote this book as much for me. Secretly, I wrote it for myself as much as I wrote it for, like, you know, young readers, because, you know, we have a lot of that unlearning and relearning to do, and that we're still told that every day in the world.
Yeah, I've been told pretty much my entire life that ambition, it was a bad word to be associated with, and it's how they described women who wouldn't just kind of know their place.
Right.
It was like, know your place, know that you have to sit inside of this box, and if you dare challenge kind of where you are supposed to fit, you're ambitious.
Yeah.
And it was like a nicer way to call you a bitch.
Right. Well. It's like settle down, right? Like, too much
like,
noise.
Who do you think you are? Kind of thing. And I, you know, I have to say that I feel like anybody who's done anything cool is ambitious. Right. Anyone who, whether it's a guy, or a gal. And I don't really think that you need to even, I guess nothing would happen if you don't have ambition.
Right.
Nothing interesting would happen. Everyone would just sort of like go through the motions and be sort of accepting the status quo and be robotic. But
right. Well, that's the whole point, that people who do use it to weaponize it and use it in a negative way or to beat somebody back, it literally is in order to preserve the status quo. It is about preserving power, right? And it is literally, and that's kind of the point of the book too, that language has power. And, when we use that and we wield that against women, that is a tool of oppression. Like, yes, that is exactly what it is. Let's name that, right? And again, there are so many other words, but it's the point that, as you just said, like the world, it would be preserving the status quo. And the whole point of questioning that or disrupting that is, yes, maybe making people feel uncomfortable, right? And they'll turn it right back in your face and, say, oh, I asked you to be ambitious and help and, be at the decision-making table, but you're doing a little too much, right? Like, stay in your lane. And
yeah, it's so true. Oh my God, that's happened to me so many times.
Right. I'm like, I can name, like all the time. But I have to say, and I'm curious, I've really connected with you around both of us being entrepreneurs and founders. And to your very point, and again, you don't have to be that to be ambitious, but I think that's also the definition of being an entrepreneur, being an innovator, right? And doing bold, interesting things in the world and not accepting it as it's sort of, given to you and looking at it with a critical eye, right? To say this can be done differently or in a better way. So anyway, we know all this stuff. I joke that I want to write like a ABC book of all the words. And I could I'm not going to do it now, but it's a fun exercise to literally go down the alphabet. A for ambitious, B for bossy, C for competitive, D for direct. I don't know. I'm like, E, okay, now I'm putting myself on the spot.
What's so interesting though is, as you're saying this, when it's associated or affiliated with a white male, it has a completely different weight.
Right.
Right? Versus
or we don't use the word at all, or we don't use those words at all to talk about men. Have you ever, literally, have you ever heard anyone call a man bossy?
No, they just call him a boss.
Right?
Done.
Exactly.
Done.
Competitive, of course, but it's a good thing.
But it's a good thing. And an ambitious man, you're like, yeah, that guy's he's gonna make moves.
Right.
He's gonna do something with
done.
his life.
He's a go-getter.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, you posted that amazing video with the Bust It challenge. I was like, okay, this is just me revealing that I'm not good at watching movies, and I have so many things that I need to catch up on. But everybody was like, honey. I was like, why are they already calling her honey? And then I looked it up. And I was like, oh, because that's Honey Jessica. I got it. Dancing. It was so good. But anyway, I mentioned it because it is the point of this conversation. It is the point of putting it in kids' books. It's about wearing it on your chest and not hiding it, right? And the more that we normalize it, the more that we claim it and get, loud and bold and make people feel uncomfortable about it. And the more that, female ambition is shown to succeed and win, such as putting women in leadership.
It's both things that you're saying. It's like the people who are trying to preserve the status quo, it might make them uncomfortable. But for everyone else, it's embracing this word and owning it.
Right.
And that's okay. And it being a positive thing instead of a negative, and don't shy away from it.
Exactly. And the more we do it, the more, we normalize that, both for men and women, right? It's up to you. But
it's also creating more equity, equality, all of it across the board. It depends who you're from, where you're from. Everyone can only come into this world with the experience that they have, right?
Yeah.
And nobody chooses.
Right.
Nobody chooses. You just, you are in this world, you come to the world how you come into the world. And then it's what you do with what you got. And some people, are born into a lot of privilege. And I would say most people aren't. And for everyone else that isn't, You know, we all deserve the same, I guess we all deserve to dream, and we all deserve to fully realize our dreams, and we all deserve to have a voice and to be treated fairly. And that's all we're ever asking for.
Right.
Right? Fairness.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that was beautifully said. I love how you talked about also, you know, that you in the family that you grew up in, that wasn't, that you had to chart your own path, right? And that you decided that you were going to be ambitious to, you know, do your thing. And it may not be in line with the, you know, thinking or, you know, messages that you were told. And again, that's the definition of being ambitious. So on that note, I have to thank you not only for, you know, your friendship, but supporting the book. And also to your very point, I mean, I think you are such an incredible model and example for all of us of someone who is using your platform and voice for good. And more than that, and, you know, we talked about this, like really going in, like, you know, knowing the issues, like talking substantively about this. You mentioned before commitment, right? Like not just showing up once, but continuing to do it over and over again. And just thank you. It is so important, and you're just doing so much. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And to know that they can buy your book. You have 2 books, but your book that just dropped, let them know where they can buy your book, where they can support.
I carry it everywhere, which means from my bedroom to the living room to but here it is. Ambitious Girl. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I got too excited about showing.
Yeah, tell everyone, please. And where can they buy it?
So you can buy it wherever books are sold. I would encourage folks, if you can, to please shop local and to support independent bookstores. I will remind everyone, as we all know, are still living through this pandemic. And, you know, in normal circumstances, independent bookstores really need our support, but they really, really, really need our support right now. We have resources on our website. Go to phenomenalgirl.com. We have a list of Black-owned bookstores. We have a whole list of indie bookstores where you can get the book. And finally, if you want, I might get in trouble for this. If you want a signed copy, I think that they are still available at Books Inc. in San Francisco. I'm very proud that we had an entire pre-order signed book campaign with independent bookstores all over the country. And people showed up and supported them in incredible ways. But I have a lot of folks who are still asking about getting signed copies. This one, actually, my daughter started to sign it. She started to write, "Dear Mommy," that's a D. So we have to finish this one. But if you want to get a signed copy, check out Books Inc., which is an independent bookstore in San Francisco, where I live.
Nice.
So, thank you, Jessica. You are amazing. I'm so grateful for your support.
Yes, and thank you for this book and for both books, but this is now going to be the one that will be in constant rotation.
Right, until you're like, I cannot read
it's great. I love it.
book again. But yeah. So
no, I love it. I love when they start to read the words and know what's going to happen next. That's like my favorite part, when it starts to sink in like that, and you can have it back and forth. So totally.
It happened with my older daughter recently, where I'm going to show it really fast. There's this part where she's like walking up the stairs, and there's, you know, the different words: persistent, assertive, confident, proud. And out of nowhere the other day, she was like walking around. She's like, persistent, girl, confident. And I was like, oh my God, this is from the book, right? She was like chanting it. And it really, you know, they just soak up everything. So
they do.
It's really important. And again, thank you. To everyone who joined. And I'll finally end. I mean, you've just done, again, incredible, you know, things. And I know you're drawing attention to other authors of color for Black History Month, for other Black authors. So go to Jessica's page and check out all the stuff that you have been doing. It's really awesome. And just thank you.
Of course. All right. And right before we leave, where should they follow you on Instagram? Your handles?
Thanks. I'm Meena on Instagram, so at MEENA, and I'm on Twitter if you want spicy political commentary for the most part, at Meena Harris. And, oh, I mean,
and phenomenal.
I have to share that I'm on TikTok. You're the TikTok queen. So I can only try to, you know, be like you, but I'm on TikTok, I think, at Mina also.
But what about phenomenal as well?
Oh, thank you. Phenomenal is at phenomenal on Instagram, and our website is phenomenalwoman.us. So if you want to get now it will be called the Bus It Challenge Ambitious hoodie as worn by Jessica. It is available there. It's pretty awesome. And you know, like, we're not hiding it. We're being bold, and that's it. Let's keep doing it.
To being ambitious.
Yes.
Get it, mama.
Get it. Thank you. You're the best.
All
All right. Bye.
Bye.